Welcome back to another episode of This Old Shop. The last time we were here, we got our wall up that separates our showroom from our shop. Today, we're gonna put the door in that separates the two so that we can drive back and forth and maybe even get a little bit of electrical in that wall. So let's get started.
Of course, an unboxing video on my channel wouldn't be complete without the dull razor blade. But since the shop is new, we haven't had time to litter the floor with the razor blades and let them get all dull and rusty. So I had to find an alternative. I went on Facebook Marketplace and found a seller that was selling some used razor blades. They had just the right amount of rust and were just dull enough that I felt comfortable using them. We finally got the razor blade to gnaw its way through the box to find the most useless part of this entire kit. And those are the directions. I'm going to toss those in the pile. And our first box is empty, minus some packing material. I must applaud the way that they packaged this. Definitely took care. Although it is a little annoying trying to get all this stuff out of here. Looks like we have all the pieces to our door frame, tracks, whatever you want to call them. Looks like the vertical parts of the frame are all the same, and then they just give you the different tracks for the top and bottom, depending on the width of the door that you order. We'll open up this other box, see what's in here. Lots of hinges, handles, and different kind of hinges. Maybe I shouldn't have thrown those directions out. Well, we'll figure this part out. Slide these two pieces together, and we'll put the screws in with the Allen wrench they provided us. I quickly realized that I'm not going to be able to tighten up the new screws if I don't loosen up the old ones that they had installed at the factory. Of course, I still haven't realized that it'd probably be easier to go get power tools. Give me time, I'm a little slow. Once we have all the screws loosened up, we can tighten them all down evenly. The heads are tapered, so that'll pull these two tracks together. So when you order this door, we got the 10-foot wide one, we got one track that's 8 foot, and one that's 2 foot, so it gives a 10-foot width. If we had ordered a wider door like 12 foot, we'd have the 8 foot and a 4 foot. And I believe the biggest you could get was 16, so we get 2 8s. And as the width of the door gets wider, we just get more panels for our door. We'll let highly caffeinated Scott finish this up, and then we'll tighten it down to manufacturer specs. Click. Hey, would you look at that? They included a torque wrench. These guys think of everything, except for including a rubber mallet to push these two tracks together. And I didn't think the track installation tool was going to do it, so we'll just hammer them together. There is a little rail on the bottom, that's why this side is a little bit tougher to get together. But it goes together the same way. We'll tighten the screws on each side, little by little, draw it together. And tighten them all down to manufacturer specs. Now it's time to join the side of our frame to the top of our frame. There's a couple little angle brackets that slip in there. Slip them in there and put the screws in. Slip our tracks together. Put the screws on the other side and tighten them up. These are also tapered, so it'll pull the track together tight. And we're going to do the same thing on the other side. And look at that. I finally figured out that we could use power tools. Makes this a lot easier. But I still don't trust it, don't want to over tighten it. They felt like they were going to strip out, but they did get pretty tight. So we're just going to recheck them. Click. Okay. Now we can join the rest of our frame to our bottom track. We have to put this little end cap in here. It snaps in there, but it has to go on before our bottom track does. This has some long screws that just go in from the side. They didn't get all fancy with their angle brackets on this one. cap in on the other side. And then screw our tracks together on this side. And no construction job will be complete without a little icing on the cake. So we're going to apply the forbidden icing to the bottom of the track to help glue it to the floor. I don't know how well it really holds it on there, but man, it's delicious. And now we can see why I'm not a baker. But it really doesn't matter what it looks like, because we're never going to see it again. Plus it squishes out the end. Now our door frame and tracks is ready to go up there for the last time. We did dry fit it once just to make sure that we made our opening the right size, because we don't want to do it after we put the icing on. And we built our opening to the specs provided, so it should fit. We'll get it centered in the opening. Make sure it's plumb, and then put some shims in there to keep it there. And we went old school on this one. We want to make sure that our frame isn't twisted, so to do that, we just taped strings onto the diagonal corners, and then you move the frame in and out until the strings just barely touch each other. You don't want them pulling in either direction. You just move them until they start to touch, and you know your frame is square. We did use the level to make sure that it was plumb, and you can do this with lasers, but even if you're off 1/10 of a degree over the span of 10 feet, it is noticeable. So this is just a nice check to make sure that everything is right where it belongs, so there's no surprises when we throw our doors up there. Pretty happy with the way it looks, so we're going to go ahead and screw it to the floor. We drill our holes in our track first. Then we'll use the hammer drill to drill into our concrete. Make sure that this door track's not going anywhere. Screw it down. That should hold it. We'll put a few more in. And then we'll screw the top track in. Make sure it's level. We'll pre-drill our hole, jam a shim in there, and then screw it in. And we're going to keep making sure that it's level every time we put another screw in it. We put all our screws in across the top, we put all our screws in down the side and to the floor, so now we can pull our strings down because, well, it's too late to move it if it's not lined up. And now it's time to start opening up our door panels and realizing that most of the cost of this door was in the packaging. In a box covered in plastic with some thick cardboard taped on it, laminated cardboard. And underneath that, some styrofoam covering up the glass panels, which are wrapped in a plastic bag. Oh, and never mind the wooden frame that they have around it. So we finally got it out of its casket. Now we can start screwing our hinges on. This part takes all the same hinges. We don't have to think too much. They pretty much only go on one way. We have to put a few hinges on the other side, but this side involves a little thinking because we have a gasket in our way, and one of these hinges is not like the others. Tried sliding the gasket down, and it's just too long. So we're going to take our dull razor blade and trim it. They put marks on the door where the gasket is supposed to end, and this one was a little longer. There's actually a couple spots where it was too long, so we did have to do a little trimming. Now we'll try putting this hinge back on there and see if it sits flush. When the gasket was pinched in there, it was leaving a space. Tighten all those down. And now we can install our first panel. And these things are not light at all. We're going to set it down on a 1x4. Hopefully that'll raise it up enough that we can get it up to where we need it without having to hold it the whole time. This is definitely a two-person job, or one person and a gnome. We'll get it lined up and then we'll start the screws. We're starting with the top down, just like we would on a car. And we'll go back over after we have them all started and snug them all up. Now we're on to our second panel. The main reason I recorded the unboxing is because if any of the panels were broken, I wanted proof that when I opened them up, they were broken. And if I would have broken them installing them, well, I would have lost that footage when I called to get them replaced. Although, I don't know how these could get broken, given this packaging. Now I got to put some hinges on this door, and this one gets a different style at the bottom and the top. Then we did have to cut out some of that gasket for this one as well. Trying to figure out how it works and if I put it in the right way. I think so. We'll put the other one on the top. And our two in the center, which are just like all the other ones that we put on. And this panel's ready to go up. Looks like we found a use for that styrofoam they sent us. It would have been nice in the directions if they told us how to put this in. Kind of had to figure it out. We decided to put the bottom on its little rails. It's got like a little truck on the bottom. And just slide the top in. And then keep the panel upright. And slide it all the way back to the other one. Now we can put our screws in our hinges, connect these two doors together. Now it's on to our next panel. I think I'm getting better at opening these boxes. And just like the other ones, no way anything could get damaged in there. And this one doesn't need any hinges, so we're just gonna set it up there. wood on there to space it up a little bit. And a couple shims to rock it in place. Make it easier on the gnome so he's not holding the whole thing up. On to our last panel, at least for our door. Had we bought a wider door, we would have had more panels, but it wouldn't fit in my wall. I'm pretty sure with the quality of this packaging, even FedEx couldn't break these, although I'm sure they would try. This door gets 4 regular hinges. Not a whole lot of thinking involved here. I managed not to screw it up, I think. And we're ready to put our door up. This one goes on the other side. We'll set it down on our spacer, 1x4. Rock it up there. Shim it if we have to. Whatever it takes to get those screw holes to line up. They are pre-drilled. We'll get all of our screws started and we'll come back and snug them all up. Now we're ready to put our handles in for our locks. There's a square rod on the back of that handle that slides into the rod assembly that goes up and down for the locks. You just slip it in there and screw it down to the door. Make sure it works. And snap the cover on. I think it's on. It's not giving me that reassuring click I like. Got another lock handle on this one. Screw it in there. Put our cover on. See if we can get a reassuring click out of this one. I guess clicks weren't included. And now we got our main handle. And our other door. Put our screws in. And put the lock in. And put our screw in that holds the lock. And if you're wondering about that gash in my head, I took the advice of some of the comments that I've had and told the pizza girl I was unhappy with the fact that she never brings pizza. And now I remember why I'm not supposed to listen to YouTube comments. And I also won't be getting a pizza.
Our door is fully installed, and if you've never seen a door like this, it's what's called a bifold patio door. I guess the office is my house and the shop is my patio, because that's the way we installed it. This is the outside, that's the inside. The glass is insulated, so it'll keep the noise down a little bit, and it'll also keep the cold air in the office, because our office will be air conditioned, but the shop won't be. The heat really doesn't matter because the shop will be heated, because I'm a princess and I can't work in the cold. I don't mind the heat. And of course our office is going to be heated. Now I went with a door that we could get in and out of with cars and people. If I had just put an overhead door in here, I would have had to put a man door somewhere else, and I really don't have the wall space for that, even though it looks like I do. Actually, I kind of do. Over here we're going to have the frame rack, so we did frame, well, we didn't frame it out yet, but I put the conduit up above so that if we do decide later on that we want to put a door in there, all we got to do is cut out the wall, cut out the studs, frame in our door, and our door's in there. I'm hoping to avoid that because I really don't want to have access to the office around the frame rack, especially if pulling's going on. You don't want people walking past you. And over here, looks like I got plenty of wall space, but I in fact do not, because our spray booth is going to come out almost to right here. There's little black marks on the ground where our spray booth is going to end, or at least that's where my measurements said they were going to end. So this is basically going to be all paint booth and mixing room along this entire wall, with the exception of a very narrow passageway, and we don't want to be walking down that all the time. So the only real access to the showroom from the shop would be through the same door that we have to drive cars in and out of. So this fit the bill. We can use it as a regular door, and we can also open it up and drive cars through. So let me show you how it works. So we can use the door just like any other door that you'd use to enter and exit a room. And it opens all the way up, but it'll probably open this far because these marks on the floor, if we did our calculations correct, and occasionally we do, is where our spray booth is going to end, right there. So that's really all the room we're gonna have, which is all the room that we need. If we have something just a little bit bigger that we need to bring in and out of the office, we can open this door, and then we have a double door. So we got plenty of room to bring a desk, a couch, whatever, smart car. And then when it's time to pull vehicles in and out, we just unlock the other side here. And we have a big wide open door. Now the panels stacked up over here are about maybe 10 inches, another couple inches over there. So the door is 10 feet wide. Now we have 9 feet to pull vehicles in and out of. Plenty of room. Now I went with this also because I don't like the typical showroom doors that you see when you go into a dealership that are just basically one big door and then a smaller door. I don't like the way they look. So I went with this one, thought it looked a little better, and it'll be just fine for us when you're sitting in here. You can see everything out in the shop. So I don't know, maybe I'll like it, maybe I won't. The one drawback that the typical dealership doors don't have, and that's that we have this track on the bottom, and we can't drive vehicles over it. Well, we can, but eventually it's going to ruin that track. So we did come up with a solution. What we're gonna do is use some of Scott's Lumber Emporium, the 2x10s. We'll put one on each side. This is not quite as tall as a 2x4. So we'll put one on each side, cut angles on the end, put one over the top, cut angles on the end, screw it all together, and we'll basically have a little ramp that we can put over here, one on each side for the tires to go over, and we never actually touch the track. It'll take a little more time, but I don't know how many cars we're going to be pulling in and out of the showroom, so it won't be that big of a deal. Once our cars are in the showroom, we drove over our ramps, we just pull it all closed. There's a handle here so you can pull it tight. And we did put the lock on the inside, not that it really matters, we're probably never going to lock it. So it just, for fire and safety reasons, we need to lock in here just because there has to be a way to get out of there. We can't lock customers in here. Not that I want to. Our door is 10 feet wide. It's also 8 feet tall, and that's actually the height of our showroom here. And the reason I went with the 8-foot tall door is this brand of manufacturer for the door, their next lower size was a 6'9" door. And a 6'9" door would be fine for people and cars coming in and out of here, but if I ever want to put a truck in the showroom, it wasn't going to fit. So we went with the 8-foot door. And we are, in the future, when we redo this office, going to raise the drop ceiling at least another foot. I think I have 3 or 4 feet up there that I could go up. So we're just gonna raise the ceiling up, and then our door will look a little more proportional. It won't go all the way to the ceiling. And the reason we're gonna do that is when there's a car in the showroom, it looks really small. It looks like the ceiling is kind of short. It doesn't look that way now because I'm short, but when there's a car in here, it makes it look kind of small in here. And if there's a truck in here, forget it, it'd look really small. So if we raise the ceiling up a little bit, it'll give the illusion that there's a little more room in here than maybe there actually is. Now that our door's in, I'm gonna continue putting in my electrical. I started it the other day because we had our door, but we didn't want to put it in because it was getting later in the day and I wanted to get it done start to finish. So we stopped with the door, and I started with the electrical. This is as far as I made it. So I got to run it down the rest of the wall, put in our outlets for our office, and I think one that goes out in the shop, because there will be a little space between our mixing room and our spray booth, like a 2-foot aisle. There has to be space on all around the paint booth, because that's how you change the lights for the paint room should they ever go out. So let's get our electrical done. Many years ago, when they built this building, they entered through the front door, and they put our switches for our office over here. Well, unfortunately, the last few tenants, and myself included, have used the side door, and that's what we're going to continue to use, because that's where we put our alarm system, which means we have to enter through there now. So we'll have to come through the shop and then into our showroom through the door that we just installed. Now, we want to put our switches over there. It makes a lot more sense than having to navigate your way through a dark showroom, tripping over whatever happens to be laying around. Cars, desks, the dead bodies of haters, Grand Am parts, whatever you might find in here. And besides, eventually, this wall will be gone. It'll be one big, wide open showroom. So let's get our switches moved over there, where they're going to be a lot more convenient. I was cutting conduit with a saw, and it worked just fine. But you get those comments that said, "You can't do that, use a tubing cutter." So then I used a tubing cutter. And then I had the comments, "Use a saw." So now I don't know what to do. I got a problem. Well, if you know me, I'm a problem solver. So here's what we're gonna do. There you go, one cut, now everyone's equally upset. We ran the rest of the conduit in our wall here, and we even ran it up in the ceiling so that we could pick up our power over there. Then we pulled all of our wires. Now it's time to make a few connections, at least the ones here for this switch, so that we can move our switches over here from over there. So let's at least get that done. Today's a nice day, and I don't know how many more of these we're gonna have before we have to wait till next spring. So we're gonna go ahead and seal up our garage door. Anywhere that you see light, we also have air coming in there. So in the winter, it's gonna be a little drafty. And well, you know, I'm a princess, so we wanna keep the cold air out and the warm air in. So we're gonna put a seal on the bottom, and then we got some weather stripping for the sides and the top. We're gonna put that in. So hopefully, in a minute, you won't see any light. So let's get that done. And then the other door, we have a big gap at the bottom. Concrete isn't exactly level. We'll see what we can do with the gasket on the bottom of that. We haven't got around to leveling the concrete yet. So it's on the list, along with a lot of other things.
Well, now we at least crossed one thing off of our to-do list. All of our gaskets are in there. And there's no light and no drafts. So we're all good here.
So just to be sure that our wall is actually strong enough, we decided to add some horizontal bracing to hold it all together. Now, I think we're gonna wrap it all in plastic. So let's get that done.
We also went over to Scott's Lumber Emporium and picked up some of that old used flooring to put up on a portion of our wall. Now we can cover it all with our house wrap. You have to go around these beams. Not usually a problem when you're putting this on a house. And we'll staple it up to our wall. That's kind of the fun part. Got it all stapled up there. And we can go ahead and cut out our door opening. And Kimberly-Clark is not a sponsor. Neither is the company that made the door, which is Arc Design, in case you wanted to get one. And since they're not a sponsor, I can say whatever I want about it. So far, the only bad things I have to say about them would be the gaskets I had to trim, which really wasn't a big deal. And the holes for our tapered screws that held the track together were a little off center. I'd imagine the machine drilling it is probably getting out of spec. Even that wasn't a big deal. It just made putting those tracks together a little more tricky. So we'll see how well it lasts. So far, I'm pretty happy with it. And we can go ahead and staple up the rest of our plastic. And I did find out that this job becomes a lot less fun when you run out of staples and the hammer stapler and have to go back to the old squeeze type. You also put in a lot less staples with the squeeze type. Our walls are fully wrapped, so there'll be no more shortcuts through the walls. We have to use doors from now on. Speaking of doors, we're finally going to install the one in the wall we put up a long time ago. When we built this wall, we just left the bottom piece in here just to hold it together, and never bothered to take it out because the roaming gnome liked to trip over it. Now we'll take it out of the way so that he can trip over to the threshold instead. We'll cut these boards out with our little oscillating multi-tool. Not sure how I ever survived without these things in construction. They're very useful. And it's time to apply some more of that forbidden frosting. Probably a little more than we needed, but we're going to toss this tube out, so might as well not waste it. Set our door in here. All the way into the trim. So far so good. Fits in the opening. We did make those tolerances pretty tight. We'll make sure the hinge side is plumb first. And we'll pull the screws out of the hinges and run some 3-inch screws in through the hinges, the frame, and into our studs. We did put shims in there so that when we tighten up our screws, we don't distort our door frame. Alright, so far so good. Sure it still closes. Looks good. Sure we're still plumb. Now we'll go ahead and screw the other side in. Check and make sure our door still closes like it's supposed to. Doesn't hang, closes tight. I think we're good. Apparently if you can hang a door in a car, you can hang a door on a building.
You might have figured out what I put all these boards in here for and why I wrapped it. And that's because we decided to go with steel siding for our wall outside. It was the most cost-effective and efficient way, and there's already the steel siding in the rest of the shop, so this will just kind of continue it. Let me know what color you think I should go with. I already went with one, but let's see if you're right. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video when we're putting that siding up.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement.